the big thing is the upcoming NAB in just over 2 weeks. And that's kind of our topic for today. Jeff and I kind of thought about the pluses and minuses because not everyone is going to go. And I suppose I could have put a little uh, uh, poll together here, and maybe we'll do that. Maybe I'll just ask everybody to raise their virtual hands, and we'll see how many are planning to go and how many are not planning to go. And of course, the third option is you'd like to go, but you're not sure yet. Jeff is going to be there. Jeff doesn't have anything out of it.
It wasn't even voluntary.
So, and I just got Elaine's press release, or it came from somebody there. Fiona sent it down that you have a new line. And I guess because it's been released, I can say that it's a rack mount series of transmitters. And maybe you can tell us more about that as we go along, Jeff. And
that's all you're allowed to say, Barry.
Oh, is the duct tape coming out? And then too, I can say that the Nug is going to be on video, or it looks to me from the timing, it looks like you're going to play it back after it's over.
No, so we are going to, for the first time ever, we're going to, so you know how we do our webinars and our Tech Talk Tuesdays, transmission talk, whatever the hell we call those things. And we do them with the GoToWebinar format. So you register, we send you a link, you can go into and watch. We're going to basically live stream the NUG using the GoToWebinar platform at the same time as we're presenting it. Now we are going to record it and archive it so somebody that misses that can get to it later. But that's the plan. Now I'm going to quantify that because we've never done this before. And that doesn't mean that the wheels won't fall off about 5 seconds before I hit the go button, in which case we may not live stream it, but that is the goal right now.
Well, okay. That sounds good, I guess. We'll be able to tune in starting at 11:30 Eastern, 8:30 a.m. in the Pacific time zone and places in between. So that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
If you want a bunch of people to bore you senseless for 4 hours, then we got them. Well, no. and we got smart people too, but there's a lot of me talk.
No, I wasn't asked to be there, so nobody gets bored.
So yeah, I think I'm kind of looking forward to that. The NUG is probably my favorite part of the whole NAB. And then there's 4 days of standing there wondering why my feet hurt.
Yeah. Well, let's start with that. Let's start with that. Going to the NAB show. What's your feeling, Jeff? Are you anticipating a large number of attendees? Are you expecting it to be sort of a hybrid this year?
So the funny thing, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said, and I have said several times, that I expect to be about 25% of a normal NAB. Okay, so normally, what do they claim? 100,000, I think, is their working number, and I expected 25, maybe. Having said that, our NUG registration is usually at this point in the game around 500 or so, and we're over 3. So, you know, relatively speaking, we're seeing about 60% of what we'd expect for this point. So, you know, again, a lot of folks will register and not show up. If that ratio stays the same, then yeah, we'll be over half of the normal attendance, which is better than I expected, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, and a lot of people at third year now, it's been 3 years since we've had one, and it's time, and a lot of people want to get there. David, do you have something to say, or are you just telling us you're going?
Just saying that I'm going.
Okay, so we got one hand, and we know Jeff, so that's 2, and Elaine's 3. So I'll count these hands as you put them up there. Now at the bottom of your screen, it says reaction. I think is the one that you want to grab. It says raise hand, and so we'll just get a little straw poll here, and as we go along, take care of that. I think that a few people have told me they're only going to be there for 2 days, Some manufacturers have chosen not to be there this year for any number of reasons. Nautel is going to have as big a booth as normal, Jeff, or?
We are, and we did that for a reason, a couple of reasons actually. Number one, because we haven't been spending a show budget for 2 years, so spend it or lose it type deal. But the other one was just the logistics of keeping things spaced out a little better for the folks that are going to be a little more cautious. Although I'm here to say, if you're that cautious, Vegas is probably a terrible place to be to begin with. And again, for some of us, it's not a voluntary thing. But yeah, no, John did decide to go with a big layout. I think we're, what, 30 by 40, Elaine, something like that?
I don't know.
See, she was on the planning meeting that I wasn't paying attention for. I thought one
I'll
of
tell
us
you
would
what
be
I'm going to
taking-
do, though. I'm going to pull up the NAB show floor plan right now, and I can tell you.
There you go. So
right.
yeah, I mean, we are going with a pretty big footprint, but we do have, surprisingly, in spite of all the logistics issues we've been fighting for the past year or two, we've actually got a new product on the show floor. So that'll be kind of cool too.
Yeah, and we're not allowed to talk about it, or we are?
So the official release will be the webinar that I'm doing from my room in the Tuscany on the 20th. The cool thing, and I'll give a little plug to Josh Bone, we're going to be, both for the NUG and for this release, we're going to be relying on Max Connects to provide us with our internet service, because I've learned better than to rely on Las Vegas hotel internet. So fingers crossed that will definitely give those things a test drive for a couple of days. But yeah, so the official release is then. I can talk a very little bit about it before then, and I will not be showing any pictures. Although the splash with the little picture of the grill is pretty close to what I've seen looks like.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jeff, I just posted the booth number in the comments.
Oh, there you go, 40 by 50. So, and yeah, and that's the other thing. This is intriguing. We're going to be in the West Hall, so we're going to be in a hall that none of us have ever been in before. And it'll be kind of mixed feelings, because we'll be in what used to be the parking lot right outside the Riviera. I think the Diamond parking lot is where the Riviera used to be, if I've got the map right.
Pretty much. They've built it over the old big parking lot, and then behind it, where the Riv used to be, is probably the back end of the West Hall and new parking.
Yeah, and I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, we held the NUG there for 20 odd years before they decided to blow the hotel up. So it was funny, because we, wife and boy and I watched the Jason Bourne movies recently, just over the last weekend, and at the very end of the latest movie, they drive a car through the Riviera Casino, and it's like, whoa, I know that place. But yeah, it was it'll be interesting to be at the West Hall and be sort of in the same place, but not.
Kind of, yeah. It's a little strange. Of course, we also did our Tuesday lunch gatherings there at the Riv for 20 odd years, and now we're doing it virtually. But
And in between, they had the landmark, which the Martians destroyed in Mars Attacks.
Yes.
I was going to mention the landmark.
Yep. So, I mean, it's like I say, it's going to be a different show. I mean, when you fill out your registration now, they send you this somewhat invasive questionnaire that you can fill out for your proof of vaccination, or I think if you've got negative test results. I don't know all the details about it. They send me the form, I fill the form out, and then they send me back a confirmation with a little app thing that goes on the phone, so I can, I don't know, wave my little barcode at them and get in the doors. So it'll be unique in that regard. Whether that deters, I know it's going to deter a bunch of people. I'd guess at a rough estimate that probably half of the people I've spoken to said, no, not going, between masks and vax and this and that, just not interested. And yeah, don't blame them a bit. But yeah, at least it'll be good to be back in front of people again. A sales guy that, you know, I love this virtual stuff, but it's just not quite the same as being there in somebody's in the same location.
True, true. Those of you that know me and have asked the question, I have a 97-year-old mother that I am the primary caregiver for. So this year I am probably not going to make it. Can't leave her alone at this point, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get away for a day or two, but as of right now, I'm sort of landlocked.
Well, and I mean, that's one of those prudence type dictates too. I mean, my mother's 80 odd and type 1 diabetic, and my sisters tend to look after her by virtue of proximity. So I tend to keep my distance, especially, and that's what I told them. They said, you should come up this weekend. It's like, I'm not going anywhere until I've got the get back from this this trip, because right now the other challenge for the folks coming in from overseas, the US still requires you to either have, well, they require proof of vaccination and a negative COVID test that's taken the day before you leave. So it's like, you know, if I turn up on the 18th of April at the airport and they test and they say, oh, you're positive, you're not getting on the airplane, then, well, you guys will be doing a lot of stuff without me. So, you know, that's another thing that's going to impact a lot of people. So
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's a whole lot of wait and see. I mean, I know we've got at least one person down where it's a question of whether or not they'll be able to get the necessary insurance coverage now that they've got COVID. So yeah, it's just a whole lot of lawyers and insurance companies finding new ways to make money off of something.
And the flip side is, of course, when you get back, you probably will isolate yourself from your mother for a few weeks, a few days, just to make
Yeah.
sure you didn't pick something
Oh yeah,
up.
no, I mean, well, the cool thing is that boy child seems like every week he comes home with another pair of COVID tests from the school. So we've got a box of those built up. So I'll run through a couple of those for the week or so after I get back, and then figure that I'm probably pretty safe to be out amongst the general public again.
Smart thing. That brings the question of surviving NAB in general. And you mentioned that in our...
Oh, that doesn't work with the background on. There we go. Hit the water bottle.
Okay.
That's my first thing for surviving NAB in general. I mean, you can dehydrate so fast in Las Vegas.
Yes. It's very dry. And number 2 is have the most comfortable shoes that you can come up with.
Yep. Yeah, and I cheat. So I historically, I used to be a Dr. Scholl's gel soles kind of guy. Go to Walmart, buy a pair for $25. I'd wear them through NAB, and then I'd wear them home and wear them the rest of the year. When I got to Vegas at the beginning of next year, the first thing I do would go to Walmart, throw the old pair in the garbage and buy another pair and wear them home. And that was, you know, that was pretty much my routine. And then I discovered that as I got older, those don't work quite as well, and Reebok working cushions have been my go-to since then. So you know, we'll see how they hold up. They've done a couple of NABs with me, and again, new pair every year.
Have you ever used
Las Vegas used to be Las Vegas used to be my solution for walking around, because they had a Z coil dealer halfway between the airport and the Las Vegas Convention Center. So I'd fly in there every year, and I'd have the taxi cab stop at the Z Coil store, and I'd get a pair of those shoes with the heavy duty coil underneath the heel, and it raises you up about an inch. And those things saved my life at those conventions.
Yeah, I've seen good things. Ray Reed, he's retired now, but used to be with our specialties at Texas. I know that I know Dave knows Ray, but he wore those Z coils for a lot of years.
Have you ever used the inserts, like those Dr. Scholl inserts?
I have not, and as I say, as I've gotten older, and when I quit smoking, I got quite a bit heavier. I discovered that the Dr. Scholl's in general just weren't doing what I needed, so I went to the Reebok working cushions, which are specifically designed for folks that are on factory floors or hospital floors or whatever all day. And those seem to do good. I know John Bissett swears by floor chimes, and so everybody's got their particular favorite. But whatever it is, you don't buy like a brand new pair of dress Oxfords and then break them in on the NAB show floor, as one example. And I know I may or may not be in a position where I have to wear a suit this show, which it'll be unique because I'm not a suit wearing kind of person. I had to actually buy a suit for the occasion. And so I've been breaking those shoes in a half an hour a day for the past couple of weeks.
Well, for those of you that have just joined us, we are just asking for sort of a straw poll. Go down to where it says reaction and then raise hand. Let us know if you're planning to go to Las Vegas. And I suppose there's also, do they have the other little hand things? You could do there's no thumbs down, is there? To say no.
Oh, if you click the three little dots, you've got all kinds of options, including thumbs down.
Is there a thumbs down?
Yep, and various sign language
right.
things.
Thumbs down. Yeah, if you're not going, put a thumbs down. If you are
going to say, I knew Rich had found that one earlier. I saw it.
if you want to put some emoji or something as a maybe, but it's just a straw poll. We'll carry on here. Elaine says you're going to be in a bubble for 2 weeks before the show. That means you have to enter tomorrow.
Less than that, because my flight is 2 weeks from Tuesday this week. So I've got 12 days to go. But and bubble is subjective. I live out in the middle of nowhere in a very rural part of the province. So I tend to be, my running joke is we had a good time through COVID in this part of the world because we're socially distanced by just by virtue of our own geography.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we want to have comfortable shoes, a lot of water. Any suggestions about the hotels?
It depends what you like. I mean, I'm staying at the Tuscany just because I like the really big room and the fact that the hotels are in or the hotel rooms are in a compound away from the casino. So I can go to my room, I can go to my car, I can walk up to the Flamingo and get on the monorail, and I can do pretty much all of that without ever seeing a casino. And now, if you're the kind of person that likes casinos, that's maybe not your best option. But yeah, I mean, it's what I tell people that have never been there is remember that this is a city that is designed to part you from your income as quickly and efficiently as possible. So if you're the sort that's susceptible like that, like I can be, then it's best to sometimes avoid those temptations.
But you raised the point there about the monorail. It can get crowded. It's particularly right as the show ends in a particular day, but it is a very good way to get around without driving or taxis. And if you find a hotel that is close to the monorail system, that's a good way to go.
Yeah. The other thing too, the diamond lot for the West Hall is owned by the city of Las Vegas. It's not part of the convention center property like the silver lot was down by North Hall. And that's cool because it's $10 a day flat rate parking. It's not so cool because you can't get a permit. But as those of us that parked in the silver lot used to find, they'd sell way more permits than they had actual parking spaces anyway.
No.
So buying the permit did not guarantee that you had a place to park if you didn't show up early. So that's something else to be aware of is $10 a day parking at the diamond lot. If you happen to, you can save a lot of money by staying further out of town. I know a lot of folks do that.
You know, I've stayed in several hotels over the years. Of course, Riviera was an obvious choice before it fell. But yeah, if you're close to the monorail, you can get around pretty good, both for the show and get the 3-day pass, the 4-day pass, and you can get down to the restaurants and things like that.
Yeah, in general. I mean, and the other thing to remember is when somebody says it's just a block, a Vegas block is not the same as like a Boston block. You know, I mean, somebody goes, oh, it's only 2 blocks from the Flamingo down to Morton's Steakhouse as an example. And it's like, yeah, that's about 2.5 miles. So, you know, you do want to pay attention to that as well. And the other thing is, if you are staying out of town and renting a car rentals since COVID hit have gone through the roof. Used to be I could get a car for the entire week of Vegas for a couple of $100. Nowadays, unless you want the extreme cheapest, maybe we'll have one, maybe we won't. You're going to be pushing upwards of $500, $600, $700 for a rental car.
Yep. All the more reason to check out the monorail station.
Monorail and Uber also works really good there. Uber or Lyft. I'm more of a Lyft guy than an Uber guy, but whichever one, they have them both.
Well, even with the Uber, you've got the traffic issues. It is
Yep.
bumper to bumper, a good part of the week. And
Yeah, but if you don't have a car, Uber or Lyft is a lot less expensive than a taxi.
Very, very much. Yep.
Exactly.
And again, they're a whole lot less than renting is these days as well. I mean, unless you plan on going a whole bunch of places or a whole bunch of distance. So that's the big thing. I mean, the other thing and the most critical thing, and NAB is actually one of the things that I think they do really well at. They've got the Map Your Show, where you can sort of plot out who you want to see and where you need to be and all that. And I mean, for us, we run a big old spreadsheet, so I can tell you at a glance, you know, I think we've got 15 or 20 people going this year, so down a bit, but at any time of day, I can tell you if they're going to be on the show floor, if they're going to be at a meeting, who's got lunches with whom, when, and where. So just, yeah, mapping it out. And I mean, I beat this drum on everything, but document. The thing I suck the hardest at is the thing that I beat the drum for the most.
All right. Well, that's a real good thing to do. The monorail, of course, can be very cost effective. You could get a 4-day pass for $36 as an example, or a 7-day pass for $56. And if you're going to spend $500, $600 on a car, and you can find a hotel somewhere close to the monorail, or the Tesla drop off, I think, is going to be at the far end of the South Hall. Is it? Do you know?
I do not know that one. I mean, where everything we're doing this year is pretty much West Hall located. I may take a spin on the Teslas just so I can say I've been in one, but I don't see a whole lot of, you know, from my perspective as an exhibitor, there's not a lot of value to it. If I was going as an attendee and wanted to see stuff in the South Hall and the North Hall, then that might be a bigger benefit.
Well, with this, with the lower attendance, it might be a little easier, but I could see where with full attendance, you could spend a lot of time online waiting for the Tesla cars, and that would do.
Yep, exactly.
So we have, we now have 6-7 people who have indicated that they are going to be in Las Vegas out of our total here of 40, close to 50 people. Oh, it's over 50 people now between.
The problem with the thumbs down indication is it seems to expire.
Oh, all right. Well, we'll have to try that again, maybe later when we get everybody going there. So, you know, Zoom has weird expiry things. Jeff, let's talk one more thing about the show, and this would be for those that don't go, or even those that are there and get a call. Support.
Yep.
How big is your customer support going to be during the show?
Not significantly different than most years. As a rule, we take one support person to the show, sometimes two. It depends on what we're doing. This year we've got Adam going. So, I mean, Nelson, Terry, Ryan, everybody else is still going to be manning the phones and taking the orders and stuff. Where you're going,
Alex sit home?
What's that?
You're going to make Alex sit home?
Oh no, Alex will be with us. Remember, Alex has been he hasn't been part of our support team for quite a while. We consult him for engineering, but his full-time gig is Wisconsin Public Radio these days. So yeah, no, he's going to be at NAB as well. We've got him seconded to do some interesting stuff we're playing with at the booth. The other thing that you will want to pay attention to, and this is true for no matter who your vendor is, of course, almost all of the salespeople are either going to be at the show or focused on the show. So the stuff that I used to respond to, well, of course, I'm the worst sales guy in the world. So, you know, the stuff I used to respond to in a day might take two now. But yeah, that sort of thing I would expect to see slowed down a lot more than support stuff. I don't think there's, except for the really small companies, I don't think anybody's taken a huge portion of their support team to the show, typically.
Right. And
now, having said that, if they need to reach out to engineering, like, I mean, we'll have the design team for the new product line will be at the show, along with some of our senior software guys. I saw somebody had asked about the new AUI, and I'll address that in a couple of minutes too, because I love that hot seat so much. But anyway, yeah, I mean, that's, you know, they're definitely through that week, there are going to be some delays. So it's best, like I say, with everything to plan ahead as much as you can. I mean, you can't control when the flames shoot out. So that, you know, that still needs to be dealt with.
that makes sense. It's logical that things will be a little slower, but many companies, of course, don't have the depth of the bench, as it were, as Nautel does. So it may be that you'll have to talk to somebody that's standing on the floor to get an answer if you're not there. And that's, but then that is almost one of the reasons that you should go, if you can, is to network with the companies that you are familiar with and use the products, so that you can get a better feel for not only the equipment itself, but the support system and the people that you're going to talk to.
Yeah.
Now,
And I mean, that's,
do the flames shoot out often?
I've been doing this too long to tell you that they never do. They don't shoot out often, but I can guarantee you if they're going to shoot out, it's going to be at usually 3 o'clock in the morning on Monday morning, right before morning drive, or 8 o'clock on a Friday, or not 8 o'clock, 3 o'clock on a Friday noon, right before evening drive, usually on a long weekend.
I know RCA used to.
Yep. They only, well, you know, which one was that, a AM or an FM? Was it the BF, the Belch fire? Was that, did I get that right?
Yeah, one of my former chief engineers was on their replacement team that went in, and I think it was something over a tube that caught fire.
Yeah. And I mean, anybody, and I don't even exclude us from us, you know, we all have issues where we'll design something and we'll get it out. We'll say, oops, should not have done that way. And then there'll be a fast field mod issued to try to, you know, recover it before anybody has any problems with it. And I know I see Grady down there, and Grady and I have had several conversations about the specific AMFET 50 that could have been done. Some things could maybe have been done a little differently. And a lot of that information we took to heart, and you'll see it in future generations. But yeah, I mean, XL60 comes to mind. That transmitter, the first release, I think I had 36 field mods on it the first year it was out. So, you know, you learn as you go. Sometimes you try to do it all in the drawing board, but we're not connecting them to 300-foot lightning rods in the factory. So, yeah, some of it we learn after we put it in Florida or, you know, someplace like that.
That's true. I had a chat with Matt earlier this week, and he told me that the AUI is almost ready now for the VS series. And you could tell us a little bit about that if you'd like.
So the VS series has been intriguing. You remember that this transmitter was first released around 2011. It uses an ARM processor, and of course, at this point, we're on the third iteration of the processor. USB interfaces in general have gone up about 17 generations in that 11-year period. So the first iteration of the VS, the problem we've got is that if we go to plug a USB stick into them, current USB sticks transfer data or are capable of it at a rate that that USB interface can't handle. So yeah, that's his big challenge right now, is finding a way to make it work for the oldest of the VSs. Everything current plugs in, it runs. It's he's had a copy running on his computer, his transmitter at home for quite a while now. So I've got some confidence that we'll see workable copy in the near future, but they want to get over the challenge. So everybody with an older one, because of course we don't like to drop support on anything. So the oldest ones have to be supported as well.
So now that's the VS. What about the other series? Are they all ready?
Surprisingly, so the original plan was VS would be out in beta, and about the time that it hit beta, we'd pull the team off of it and put them on the next, which was going to be GV. And then the VS we figured would hit general release shortly after that. And then we'd be able to put a hard start on getting ready to go with GV. Well, GV is already tentatively up and running. So the lead time between the two is going to be much less than we expected. And that's a good sign. Following that, the NV Lite uses the same ARM processor platform as the VS, so it should follow pretty quickly. The NX uses something similar. The low power, the high power uses more like the GV, and then the older NV uses like the GV. So the GV and the VS are the two, I guess, what would you call them? Front runners, ground breakers. They're the ones where we're learning all the things we need to know about their specific technologies. Everything else is just an iteration.
Very
So,
good.
yeah, once we actually get it going, it'll go a lot faster. But yeah, it's like I said, this hot seat has not been my favorite place to sit for several months now, years even.
Matt felt the same way, and
He's much more tactful about it than I am, though.
he framed it more along the lines of, we want to do it right so that people don't get crazed when the upgrade fails.
Right. And I mean, that's the big deal, you know, because anybody who's done an OS recovery knows that there's a very specific set of instructions. And if you don't follow them, something will go sideways.
Oh,
So we're trying to simplify that as much as we can. The good thing is, going forward, we've already solved that issue. It's just the getting to the going forward part.
interestingly, when that happened the first time, the password, the default password, they misread it because they got the two stations reversed of this Native American tribe. And it failed. The whole OS thing failed. Later on, I requested a copy of the original test sheets, found the right password, and it went, which you have to be careful.
Right. And that's like, I had a guy asking me about upgrading, I forget which model now recently. And I said, look, I said, you're going to have to do an OS recovery. It is a separate procedure. So I said, if you follow the procedure step by step and tick it off as you go, it won't be a problem. I've done 24 of them and never had an issue. If you try to shortcut or assume you know what you're doing because it's just a computer after all, then you are almost guaranteed going to screw it up and talk to support. And they'll bail you out. I mean, it's really rare to have one brick so bad that you can't recover it. I think it's happened twice in 8,000 transmitters. But yeah, it's not impossible.
Do you give them a Mazda?
No. I can't think anybody I like that little. Said that out loud, sorry. Yeah. But no. Now, having said that, we do have shiny new transmitter this year. So we did talk about that a little bit. Plug your ears, Elaine. We're going to talk about the new transmitter, Elaine, but
It's the webinar, Jeff.
there you go. And that is the big deal. Three things. So we have the TT on, well, no, I'm going backwards. Let's start with the webinar. So the release webinar is the 20th from my room in the Tuscany. We will have one of these shiny new transmitters there. Being super creative, it's called the VX series. That may or may not be the name when it's released, but that's what it's been for the past little while. It's a little simpler, a little smaller, a little more rugged, goes to higher power levels. I think the efficiency is about the same, may have gone up a point or two, I don't know. And it's actually got front swappable power supplies and fan filters that you don't have to disassemble the whole damn transmitter to get to. So, overall, it was the product of a whole lot of customer feedback, a whole lot of customer service feedback, and a whole lot of production feedback to come up with something that was easy to build and, works good. And ideally doesn't break the budget, because if it's expensive, you're not going to buy it.
Quieter fans?
Perhaps. Yeah, no, that was also, so for what it's worth, the design spec for this transmitter, the spreadsheet where we listed all the things we wanted to see fixed and resolved, is pushing 2,000 line items. And fans is very much one of them. And then there were several years of meetings and discussions about, you'd get 5 people together and say, okay, these 5 things, score them on what you think is the most critical and what's the least critical. And there was a whole lot of sorting and parsing and figuring out, what we figured was most important. And coincidentally, fan noise was fairly high on that list. Power supplies that you can actually get to without taking the transmitter apart. Fan filters that you can get to without taking the transmitter apart. Those also came up there. So those are the things that came to mind. It's like I said, I can't let too many cats out of the bag. You'll see about it in a week and a half.
Okay.
So that was one thing. As I said, NUG live stream, that is on the Sunday that the show floor opens. And that was done on purpose, because in 2019, we put out a questionnaire to the several hundred people that we had sitting in the room and said, do you want us to move this to Saturday, or do you want to leave us where it is? And overwhelmingly, over 75% of the people said, leave it where it is. We'd rather miss a few hours of the show floor and go to NUG. So we are overlapping the NAB show opening by a couple hours. Hope you'll stay around. But if people can't, we understand that too. The kicker is there is lunch at the end of it. The benefit of leaving early is you won't have to listen to me. So there's that as well. But so that's that. And then Tuesday, we do our transmission talk Tuesdays. And the one on the 26th is going to be live from the show floor. So now the time zones are wonderful. It starts at noon Eastern, which is 9 a.m. Pacific, which is before the show opens. So we will be, for the first time maybe ever, I'll be wrapping it up on time, so we're done and put away before the show starts. But yeah, we'll do a booth tour and talk about some of the stuff that we've got there, and talk to some of the people that designed it and put it together.
I would imagine there are going to be several booth tours and some YouTube uploads. And in fact, folks, those of you here, we're still not, we're still about the same number of folks that have committed to going. But if you would like to use your phone and take some shots or videos of what you see as important or noteworthy, send them on down to me, and we can share them here on the Thursday and other times as well.
Yeah. Now, Jerry had asked what's considered older for a VS, talking about the ones where we're having the challenges getting past the loading the software. And I'd say once it's loaded, it works great. It's just the actual getting it on. We found if we grab the oldest USB stick we can find on the shelf, it'll work pretty good. If we grab a new one off of the shelves at Best Buy or whatever, it'll fail pretty good. But so
is that indeed a USB speed issue, or the size of the USB? I found some software doesn't support the larger drives.
And it very well could be either. And again, Matt works with that a lot more than I do. All I know is that he said, yeah, if I grab this old 256, well, no, 512 meg, because you need at least 300 and some odd meg to do it. But less than 1 gig stick, it'll work fine. And I don't know what Jerry's showing me, but anyway, point is that anything that shipped with software revision 1 dot something is potentially going to have this challenge. And this is what we're trying to overcome before we go to full release on the software. As we just, because as it stands, there's about 1,000 of that particular transmit. We got 8,000 VS transmitters out there. Don't know if that's proprietary. If it is, John can come back and scold me later. But there's a pile of them out there, and about 1,000 of them have this Generation 1 software with the there's some code loader in them that potentially has a conflict. So that's what they're fixing. But anyway, and worst case scenario, the extreme worst case scenario, I'll say it here so you can all panic about it and come back to support and say, oh, and they'll all say Jeff's full of crap, and also true. But the extreme worst case may be that we discover that the very oldest ones, that we go to you guys and say, look, if you want this updated, then call us and we'll make a deal to exchange the controller board or something like that. So, we're not abandoning any of them, but how we do it will be determined by what we're going to go through to get it done. And so I don't know if Matt's quivering in the background anywhere, but I'm sure his ears are burning now.
Okay. One more thing about the show itself, and then I'd like to veer off to a little bit different approach and some comments that maybe our group will share, especially since so many have pretty much said that they're not going for whatever reason. The Vegas Convention Center says that if you are going to go and you are vaccinated and you have the proof of it, you do not necessarily have to have a mask, but they are recommending it, and it is required on public transportation and transportation hubs as of this time. So if you're going to get on the monorail or on the bus or whatever, you may need to carry a mask with you. Otherwise, you may run into some people saying things to you. Harold, you've unmuted. You have something to say.
No, I just have my push to talk microphone, so it's easier than muting and unmuting.
Okay. Jeff, let me ask this question of you, or Elaine. Have we come to a point where a 40 by 50 or 30 by 50 booth is passé, that the NAB itself is no longer the goal for folks because they don't have standby help while they're out of town, or they can't get their corporation to pay for it, or Las Vegas no longer has a thrill? What do you think? Some of the options, of course, there have been some traveling shows where Larry Bloomfield used to do one going around showing off the things that he saw or was sponsored to say he saw at the NAB show. But I'm finding that in many cases, this will mirror the regular SBE attendance. And in some of these cases, the manufacturers are telling me that they'll come into a city and find 6 or 8, maybe 10 people show up.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that there are other traveling road shows, and I know BGS and Second Opinion have put together one, the next big thing, and it's consistent. They're seeing consistent attendance. So yeah, like you say, it's not huge numbers. It's similar to an SBE meeting, but you're seeing a lot of folks that may or may not actually get to NAB. Mm-hmm. Or to the local shows. For my money, the state trade shows are where I try to focus my efforts. But all that said, I mean, that 40 by 50 booth at NAB, I'll see several hundred people in the course of 4 days. So,
yeah, I was going to mention too, that there's a certain level of efficiency and scale that you can do if you are genuinely shopping for something like a new studio, a new transmission site, that sort of thing. It's really convenient to be able to go to one venue and just talk to everybody you need to talk to. And from the vendor standpoint, I work with several equipment vendors. I've got a handful that are going to be at NAB, and they really, really like the opportunity to get together and visit with people. Now, as Jeff mentions, the state shows are a good time to be able to just sit down and spend some quality time with these people. But in terms of getting the word out quickly to a lot of people on the new stuff, what you're working on, that sort of stuff, it's hard to beat a big show.
Yeah, no, and again, like I said, to get the time, like as Elaine said, to actually have a conversation, state show by far better option. The challenge is that a lot of states don't do a lot of engineering content, and if there's, if they're just doing a sales and talent type show, you're not going to find a lot of vendors there, because for us, the value is talking to the folks that fix the stuff or install the stuff or recommend the stuff. So, I mean, as an example, I fly to Juneau for the Alabama broadcaster show. And on the 11th, I turn around, get out of Juneau and get to Little Rock so I can be at the Little Rock or the Arkansas broadcasters on the 12th. So, it makes for a little more of a whirlwind schedule, but to me, that time has got more value than the NAB show. Now, having said that, the NAB show is awesome because I'll see people that I won't see at a lot of the smaller shows. So different audiences for each. And I mean, I'll see people in the run of traveling around the country over the year that I won't see at either the state or the NAB show.
Good point. And yes, just like car rental, the hotels are more expensive this year. There are more of those, what do they call them, where they add on a little fee to you on top of the rental?
Oh, service fees or convenience fees, resort fees.
Resort fees.
A resort fee for the car?
Yeah.
Who knows? But yeah, it's a combination. I think if you have the opportunity, I have found myself, all things considered, that yes, you should get to the NAB in Vegas from time to time. And yes, I agree with Jeff. There are some regional or state shows, Texas comes to mind, that I think are very valuable and worth the effort to be there. Anyone have an opinion about that, that would like to share what your feelings are? A lot of people say that they don't want to go to the NAB because the floor space got too big. It's too TV and video oriented, and the radio floor has all but disappeared. Many of the radio folks are in the West Hall, but they're spread out all over the place this year.
And as
NAB has been taking on more and more industries. They've got a lot into. They start out with radio and television. Now they're now doing post-production. They're doing cinema. I think they're trying to cover the world here. So that's one way that they make the show really big.
Well, and in what I consider the early years, the early 80s, I remember when satellites were a new thing and they started filling the front parking lot with 10-meter dishes and truck after truck after truck, to more recent years where the thing starts looking like the CES. I mean, I never imagined half of a wing done in drones. We had UAVs flying between the little fishing line threads and stuff.
Yeah, the drones were where RCA and Ampex used to be.
Barry, I agree with you 100% that the NAB has diversified too much. I see this show becoming more a web production show than anything else now, but I am going. I also will plug the AES show, which has really emphasized broadcast over the last few years, and in both technical sessions and display. But yeah, there is no true radio show anymore, and there is no true TV show anymore. And I think NAB is actually trying to push TV aside by creating NAB New York. I think they really want to get the web production people. And if you look at the booths, that's what we're really seeing.
Well, streaming certainly has become a major issue, streaming podcasts.
Not that I think there's anything wrong with streaming, by the way.
It's all video production and audio production. Just the RF transmission part isn't there anymore.
Well, the fact is that Nautel, where's my button? And all these other manufacturers have moved away from tubes to reliable transmitter units, and it's not as easy. Jeff, you can tell me, you can tell everybody, it's not as easy to sell a transmitter as it used to be.
I don't know that that's the case. I think it's changed a little, but I mean, you know, if I look at the numbers I see, they haven't changed in the 15 years I've been doing sales. I've gone up a little, but you know, now are they going up as fast as the bean counters? Well, probably not, but they're going up consistent with what I would expect for my territory. So I don't know that it's harder or easier. It's a little different. We're dealing a lot more with folks that are more IT centric as the older guys age out. But yeah, I mean, I don't. No, I wouldn't say that it's any. And I mean, remember, my sales experience only goes back to 2007 too. So, you know, I'm not necessarily the best person to talk to about that.
Well, maybe I framed it the wrong way. In the good old days, you would have a transmitter, and after 5-10 years, you would upgrade to the next model. But once
Is that indeed the case, though? Those, I mean,
what
people
days
kept
were
them for like
those?
30 years or so.
Yeah, I'm going to say I don't remember those good old days, even back to when I started in 1990. I mean, I think it's shifting the other way. I think back in the good old days, they bought a tube rig expecting they'd be able to keep it going for 30 or 40 years. Whether that was the design plan or not, it's just how it worked out. And I think these days, both, and again, not just on the user end, but on our end, we've got a lot of younger IT-oriented folks doing the design work, and they're used to the fact that you swap a computer out every 4 or 5 years. And they're like, why wouldn't you do anything different with a transmitter? You don't drive your car till it's 20 years old, not realizing that in this industry, a lot of people do. So I think you're going to see more of a paradigm shift to the overall viewpoint that we don't run it until it drops anymore, that you do need to start budgeting for the backup system after about the 10-year point or the new replacement. And, you know, I think that just running it until you can't get parts for it anymore is kind of short-sighted anyway.
I'll put forth this view, and you can bat it if you'd like. Yeah, there are some Raytheon 1000s still around. There are some 20Vs still around. But here's the thought. What I see, maybe that is an area where you find more sales, is the consolidation of sites where they're looking to have smaller footprints. The Continental H16s just can't fit in the small buildings where they try to put 5 stations. So the smaller transmitters are going to sell to overcome the older ones. For me, I think the bigger thing is probably efficiency and operating costs. I mean, we've hit the point now where a solid state transmitter is going to be more efficient than almost any tube transmitter. There are still a few that are pretty darn close. But between the fact that you can't buy parts, the fact that it's getting harder and harder to find engineers who have the free time to take on yet another customer. I mean, it's getting to where, and I mean, tubes don't seem to be lasting as long as they used to. And again, I don't have any firsthand. All I can tell you is what I read. But you know, with Freeland gone and some of the other options not as
as busy as they used to be. It just seems to be that that's getting to be a bigger challenge. So I don't think that it's necessarily a whole lot to do with the physical footprint, although I'm sure in some cases that is a situation, but it's more to do with the fact that the pie is getting split between so many things with streaming and satellite and everything else, that anything you can do to reduce the operating costs is critical.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. No question.
Barry, your original point, I think, was that these solid state transmitters last longer than the tube ones, so possibly sales would drop off since they would last over a longer number of years. But there, as someone else pointed out, there's the parts obsolescence. Things are going obsolete very quickly and makes it difficult to support the transmitter. So I'm wondering if what are we seeing in the replacement life cycle on these now? Maybe 10 years, something like that?
So I tell people, and I alluded to it earlier, but I tell folks that you should start budgeting for the replacement at the 10-year mark and be expecting to have it replaced at 15. And I mean, you're bang on with product life cycles. And this new one that we're releasing is a prime example. It's, a new product, any new product will be several years in the drawing board, between prototyping and mocking it up and getting the software to go with the hardware and blah, blah, blah. And I can guarantee you that between the time we came up with the concept and said, let's do this and put the first breadboard together to where we got to where we're ready to do this product release next week, there were probably half a dozen components that became obsolete on that transmitter before we sold the first one. And I mean, that's how fast it happens these days. And the scarier thing now with the logistics we're seeing on life cycles, I mean, I can't give you a part that we use that's got less than a 1 year replacement life cycle now, lead time on. So like if I need to order new AND gates, I'm getting quoted 50 to 75 weeks on how long it'll take to get them, because radio typically is a niche market to the chip makers. So, if GM comes and says, I want 5 million of these ICs, and we come up and say, we'd like 500 too, guess who's going to get serviced first? And so when we're looking at 1 year to year and a half deliveries on new parts, we're seeing in some cases they're obsolete before we even get them.
Now, that is a definite problem for many manufacturers. And of course, as the industry continues to morph into more and more computer-oriented storage as well as operations, some of the equipment that we have looked to for years is no longer viable in the studio. As it turns out, and before I run away here and forget about it, I have a local fellow here who is looking for a cartridge for the Denon CD player. He's got a player, but he can't play any of his CDs because he didn't get a cartridge with it. So if anybody happens to have,
talking about the actual shells that would house the discs,
that's the one for the 951 FA player. Yeah, I think it's an ACD5B is what the cartridge is called. And if anybody happens to have one sitting in the back, he says all the sellers on the auction sites want to sell big quantities, and he wants to find out if it's going to work, if the machine's working.
Yeah, Barry, the problem is that it was never very successful to just have one cartridge and then switch a whole bunch of CDs. That's why everybody bought a ton of cartridges and kept them married to the CD that they put it in there for that reason.
Oh yeah, well that's certainly true. But the question here is he has a machine, he wants to make it sure it works before he buys more cartridges. So he's looking for somebody that will sell him, lend him, give him one, and that's what he's looking for.
We had hundreds of them at WPIX. We used the Denon.
Mm-hmm. Many stations did, because it kept the CDs cleaner and less messed up than they would be stacked in a pile just natively. Jeff, you mentioned the new transmitter is a VX,
Yeah.
like the germ warfare.
Oh, probably. I don't think that was intentional by any stretch. Of course, then again, the first, let's see, one of the first solid state transmitters we made, the Q series, the original plan was to call that the Quantum. And I said, you know, there's a company called QEI that builds one called the Quantum. I'm not sure you want to model after that name. So yeah, there maybe we need to hire some marketing person to do a little more research on that sort of thing. But we typically, I don't know how they come up with the names. Anyway, VX is what they got. But yeah, hopefully it won't involve too much germ warfare or whatever.
Jeff, as you build these, as you design these new transmitters,
Yeah.
is it more component level building, or is it more sort of building block, more modular?
Yes. A little bit of both. It really depends. I mean, obviously we outsource a lot of stuff like power supplies, because we discovered years ago that for us to build a supply, it's like one of our guys said once. He goes, I could design a supply that would be just as reliable as this one, but it would be 10 times as big and cost 10 times as much for the first several years. So, you know, at that point, a lot of it does get outsourced. We decide we need a power supply, we'll go look and see what we need and buy that. Other things like the controllers are typically more and more, they're glorified industrial computers, and we're writing the code that makes them run. So the software as a part is a much more critical thing. As we move forward now, the amplifiers, those are built in-house and designed in-house, although a lot of times we may use a off-the-shelf design, you know, if nothing's really changed technology-wise. The combiners, we definitely do our own design. So it varies from one to another, exactly what's designed in-house and what we just use off the shelf. But for the most part, the integration is definitely in-house. The software, how it all ties together, that's all very carefully controlled in-house.
You're mentioning that GM orders billions. They're not even getting the components.
Yep. And it's more and more, I mean, it's one of those that we had, I call it a comedy of errors, but I mean, there were the company that makes the 90% of the world's analog digital converter chips had a major fire about 2019, 2020. There was another IC factory had a much more catastrophic fire later in 2020. And then, of course, all the other logistic stuff we've dealt with through COVID slowing things down. So it's been interesting times. And I mean, I did an SBE webinar on this in January after spending some time with our logistics folks. And they're telling us that they're optimistic that by late 2023, we'll be back to normal. I'm a little more pessimistic. I'm betting it'll be 2024 before we're back to anything even approaching normal. But it does mean that delivery times are getting shoved out there. It means that the manufacturers have to hold a lot more parts in stock to meet their own delivery requirements and production needs, which means, of course, that asset taxes go up, prices go up, shipping costs more. It just cascades. So, you know, it is something that I tell folks, and I've done sessions on this too. One of the big deals is that there is a bigger need for maintenance than ever before. Because I can guarantee you, if you have the flames shoot out the roof of a transmitter at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning before morning drive, odds are most manufacturers aren't going to have something sitting on the shelf to get you back up in a hurry. And I mean, these days, don't make any secret of the fact that we're booking stuff 16 and 20 weeks into the future. You know, part of that's just workload. We're busier than we've ever been. And part of it is because it takes longer to get stuff out the door. So, you know, you need to be planning for that too at any point, whether it's scheduled replacement or whether it's doing the maintenance so you don't get caught short in an emergency situation, testing backups and making it all work.
One of the interesting things I've been reading about lately is the fact that the car manufacturers were so hurt by this last COVID and the fires and everything. Some of them are seriously looking into getting into the chip business themselves.
Yep. General Motors, GM or Ford, one of the two of them is started construction of a manufacturing facility that's supposed to be producing by 23, 24.
Is that just a fab, or are they going to do design also?
I do not know the answer to that. All I know is they plan on making the chips that they need, but whether they're going to design them, I can't answer.
There's a lot of new fabs going on here in Arizona, and there were already quite a few.
Yeah.
I think a majority of the manufacturing is still TSMC out of Taiwan, and the analog company was probably AKM. Is that right?
It was. Yep. And that fire was what, was late 2019, early 2020. I haven't Googled it recently, but yeah, that was a big one.
I understand, I read that some of the car manufacturers are shipping without some of the devices, with the expectation of installing them later.
Your engine will come next.
The one I heard about was for the rear control for the HVAC fans. So the person in the back seat couldn't control their environmental settings. Only the person in the front seat could, with the promise that once the chips were available, they'd install them and turn on the feature.
Again, I say a car, you got to make sure the car comes with brakes.
Subtle things. It's the little things that matter.
But you're in New York. You don't need brakes. They don't go fast enough.
Ooh.
What was it they did on the Tucker? You would make a down payment and it would buy you the radio. They'd deliver the radio for a car that we hope to deliver in the not real distant future.
There's a technicality there. If that's the case, it means that when it gets back into the United States, then that's when they could say it was assembled.
Yep.
It was assembled after the customer had it.
Well, that's like lots of products we've had. We get them out into the world and then we discover what's wrong with them, or you think you've tested for everything. And as Jeff said, you connect it to the big lightning rod in the backyard and then the real fun starts.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one of those, that's always been the case going back right to the very first time. I'm sure that Marconi built a perfect transmitter and then connected it and then said, oops,
the message, it was crashed by the messages they transmitted on it, same as now. It was a software problem.
Yep.
The one thing I see that's really sad, or it's kind of an interesting crossroads in time. We have fewer people and fewer young people doing work on equipment of this type. And it's becoming more important that we track the picky little details. I go through stations that they've actually ordered parts in the past, but they're unaware of them, that they don't have a good inventory. They may call the factory and you'll find out, well, that part doesn't exist, or it's 78 weeks in the future. They may have some, but they don't know where.
Right.
And those people we used to have who had the pride of authorship, pride of ownership, who'd go in the workshop and say, this is mine. I may not know where it is, but I think I can find it. And nowadays, no one's got, you're going to wander into a station you've never seen before, and the blanks in every checklist are blank.
Yeah. And that's why I beat, and I mean, I mentioned it before today already, but the document. You need inventory lists. You need to know what you've got. You need to know where it is, because at some point, for some reason, somebody's going to go, oh, I wonder if we got one of these anywhere.
Well, and if it is just unobtainium, that you actually have half a baggie of them. I made a note here. Went into a station a few weeks ago and we worked on an AmFet 400. The guy before me had ordered some parts and he'd used a few of them. He sent the power amp to someone else who had put in some parts. And in just digging through the place, I found a couple of boxes marked AM transmitter parts. Well, it's the only transmitter they own. Fortunately, they were parts for the current transmitter. And I thought, you know, there are a couple of $1,000s of hard to get parts in this cardboard box.
Yeah.
And you know, I took the Sharpie to it and made a much bigger deal and showed it to the, you know, to everybody, you know, said, guys, you need more people need to know this exists and where they are.
Yeah. I had a guy call me once back when I was in support, and he called and he was ordering a part. And I mean, back then there was just one of me. We had a lot fewer stations out there, and I had a little more time. So I'm digging through his call records, and I go, "You've ordered this part and associated stuff like a lot." And he goes, "What do you mean a lot?" And I go, "Well, have you had that many failures?" He goes, "No, only one or two." And I said, I've shipped you like 5 envelopes of these parts and or various permutations. Well, it turned out he was forgetting, or he'd asked somebody and forgotten that he'd asked them. And so he got digging. He calls me back, canceled the order. And he says, "Yeah, I found enough there to keep us going for the next 10 or 15 years. And so, yeah, it does happen, especially if you've got more than one person or a bunch of contract folks. You know, if you have a preferred choice and then you call your second choice when number one's not available or whatever, you got to, again, documentation. You need to have a list of what you got and where.
And then you also have, when staff changes happen, the manager that thinks they know best sees a whole bunch of stuff at your desk, and they just throw away all the parts and then wonder where everything is.
Yep, clear all that old stuff out of here.
I recently got a call from a previous employer saying, "I know you bought the parts. Where was it?" I said, "It was right on my desk. I know you happen to have thrown it out because I heard that my assistant told you not to throw it out, and you did."
Yep. On that note, I got to head out. I got another meeting in 15 minutes I need to get ready for. But folks, it has been a lot of fun. Let's see. I don't know how many people answered your survey, Barry, but I hope to see some of you on the floor next couple of weeks.
This is the first time that I have done a poll like this. I didn't know that it instantly alerted everybody that there was one. So thank you, everybody. We had, goodness, we had 85% have already participated. The yes, I'm going is 1/3. No, not this year, 2/3.
Yep, that's about, then see, that ties into about what I estimated is where I figure we'll be too. So that's right in line.
Couple of maybes. Jeff, thank you. Thank you for being with us, and we'll look forward to hearing more as Elaine lets you take off the duct tape and spill the beans.
Yeah, like I say, it'll be a whole lot of fun in a week and a half when I can pull the blanket off the box on the desk.
Jeff, will there be?
Jeff, see you in a couple.
Yep.
Jeff, will there be drinks at the Nortela booth?
I'm not allowed to say yay or nay, but there's usually at least one reception involving some beers and brews and bowl and various other things like that.
The margarita machine with the Nautel front panel.
There you go. There you go. I'll put that forward as an engineering suggestion.
I still like the transmitter in Amsterdam with the beer
tap on it. We had 2 kegs in there. Yep. There's reasons we're not allowed to do that at NAB, but we did ask. So
does that just cross the wrong unions? You need the drink servers union or something?
Or something like that. I forget the details.
What is 2,000 square feet of floor space cost? How big is the check you write to NAB when this is all over?
So remember that we're bringing 15 to 20 people in there, housing them in hotels for anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks. Rental cars, meals, etc. The show floor is surprisingly not the biggest part of it. Without giving the exact number, it's safe to say that we'll be well into 6 figures before we're done the end of the month. You know, I've always said that the NAB is our $250,000 show or $500,000 show, and I'm not exaggerating by a whole lot when I say that.
Well, and just every commodity comes up to it as an add-on. That you remember when POTS lines to run modems were a new thing, and oh, you want carpet on that? Ooh, you'd like padding under your carpet.
Don't let anybody see Don't let anybody see you plug in an extension cord, but that's a whole different story. So on that note, I do have to go, but folks, thanks very much.
Thanks, Jeff. Look forward to seeing you soon.
See y'all.